Good evening. It's Sunday, December 11th, and this is the 25th edition of Pucknology Writers Room. Tonight, we somehow find yet another way to talk about Jonas Enroth, debate who is better between Austin Matthews and Patrick Laine, discuss this weekend's Barracuda games, and share our holiday wish lists. You can be a part of tonight's Pucknology Writers Room by commenting in the Google chat or sending in tweets to @Pucknology using the hashtag PucknologyWR. Whether you're watching on Pucknology.net or YouTube or listening to us on SoundCloud, Google Play, or iTunes, thanks for tuning in, and please help us out by subscribing to our channel. On tonight's panel, we have a very special guest, and we'll waste no time introducing him. Please welcome Paul Gackle.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up from Paul Gackle.
Paul's tired.
Yeah, long weekend for Paul here. And I am Kevin Lacy, and I decided to dress up for episode 25. Don't get used to it. Wow. And then next up, we have Mr. Analysis himself, Drew Weber.
Analytics all day, every day.
Every day.
And last but not least, of course, is your host, the Canadian himself, from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Ian Reid.
Hey everyone, welcome to our 25th episode of the Pucknology Writers Room. Again, obviously joined by Paul Gackle, and we're super jacked that you are here. We know this has been a hellacious weekend for you, so off the top, just want to say appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Hey, no problem. Thanks a lot, Ian. You've
No
always
problem.
been very gracious toward the Gackle Report, so it was hard to say no when you jumped into my DM.
Yeah, that's what I do. All right, so we're starting a little bit later tonight, so I'm going to try and just keep the show kind of flowing, because this is going to be, speaking of hellacious, tomorrow morning is going to be hellacious for your friendly Canadian robot. So let's start off with the Cal Clutterbuck extension, 5-year extension, 3.5 million AAV. The bottom line of the Islanders has to be, it's, when Ladd gets pushed down there, it's going to be like 13 million, right?
On that fourth line, it'll be like Dallas's net minding.
Yeah, it's crazy. What do you guys think? Like, I like Cal Clutterbuck. Don't get me wrong. I just think like that money in that term, and when you let Kyle Okposo go last year, like I would much rather see some of that money get shifted to a guy like Kyle Okposo than eaten up. I mean, obviously Okposo is going to make more than that, but you'd think like a portion of that should have went his way rather than locking up Cal Clutterbuck. Paul, we'll go to you first. What do you think of this extension?
Well, it's really hard to figure out at times really what's going on at all with the Islanders organization. I'm pretty shocked that they gave Andrew Ladd the type of money that they gave him sort of to begin with, as a, and I like Andrew Ladd as, sort of like a guy and a leader, but geez, man, I don't know. I was pretty shocked. I mean, I can't believe that what they were asking for to begin with, but I think his agent really probably deserves something. But, it makes me wonder, if, you hear about the Islanders, obviously they moved from the island to Brooklyn, and if they're just having a tough time keeping guys, because the team have just been very upset about that move, because most of them still live on the island, and the commute into Brooklyn's a pain in the butt. And, it's hard to get property and real estate in Brooklyn. I mean, unless you're willing to live with like 6 hipsters or something like that. So I just don't think that, it's an ideal situation. I think it's going to be hard for the Islanders to keep and attract players. And I wonder if with, Clutterbuck and, if he's willing to stay, and there was a deal on the table, and so they decided to go with it. But, this has been an organization that's been, obviously baffling, going back to the Rick DiPietro signing, and it doesn't seem like they've really made a whole lot of moves. They had that one good year where they brought in Leddy and who was it, Boychuk?
Johnny Boychuk.
And, yeah, they had that good year a couple years ago where they made some good moves, but then it seems like the move to Brooklyn sort of kind of eradicated, some of that. And I mean, I'm with you guys with Okposo. I mean, that would have been my priority. Guys like him and Franz Nielsen over, bringing in Andrew Ladd and this move. So it does make me sort of wonder, are they just having a tough time attracting and keeping guys, and under their new situation, and how long are they going to be able to stay in Brooklyn? Because it seems like it's just been one bad news story after another since they made the move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Drew, what's your thoughts on this wonderful deal?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this deal at all. 3.5 I think is way too much for Cal Clutterbuck, and it's like, I get it. He plays physically. He's a great defensive fourth line center. But I mean, really, how much different is he from Tommy Wingles? Like, Tommy Wingles has more production, a little less defensively stable, but it balances out. I mean, I wouldn't give Wingles 3.5 million. I'm not sure if I'd give Clutterbuck even close to that either. And at the bottom line is he's a fourth line player. And like you said, Andrew Ladd down there has the most expensive fourth line in the league.
Yeah. Kevin, what do you got?
Piggybacking off of what Paul said, not just keeping players, but trying to lure players into that financial situation is going to be very hard when Andrew Ladd is making so much money. Cal Clutterbuck and Casey Cizikas making a ton of money as fourth line players. Like, even if they were to, say, attract a high caliber player to play with John Tavares, they might not be able to afford him because of all these depth signings, but just throwing money around loosely.
Yeah, and it's good that you bring that up, because I think if there's one thing, like, and I've said this multiple times, multiple shows now, where if the one thing where Garth Snow's really failed, it's to really put anything substantial around John Tavares. Like, if I'm John Tavares, I want the hell out of there, because they've never put anything around him worthwhile for the most part.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, you look at Tavares now, and what's he, a free agent in July 1st, 2018?
Yeah,
so not this summer, but the next summer. And you look at the whole situation in New York, and you go, how on earth could Tavares actually stay with this team?
No, I don't. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So he's gone, and where are you going with all this?
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So other news, Kari Ramo gets a PTO. Has that upgraded yet? Has he actually signed anything? I know it's been a really busy week for me, so I caught the news that he got signed. I know they sent Enroth down to the very veteran Toronto Marlies. So yeah, what do you guys think of this move? Enroth down, Kari Ramo gets PTO.
I mean, I think Ramo would be a good PTO guy. Whether you have him in the minors or whether you need him as a backup in case of injuries, kind of thing. But he hasn't played well in 2 games so far. I think he's given up 7 goals over the 2 games, 879 save percentage over these 2. Granted, it's a horrifically small sample size, but
correct.
You'd like a little bit more out of the gate.
Paul, what do you think of what do you think Kari Ramo in Toronto?
It's a meh move to me. I mean, sort of irrelevant. I mean, when we're talking about, second, third string goalie on a non-playoff team at this point. I mean, and this team's fortunes ride with Frederik Andersen at this point, right?
Right. Yeah, and Anderson's been pretty good, and it's not like
he's been pretty good. I mean, think about how much heat he faced, in the first 2 weeks of the season or whatever, and then you don't hear a thing about him again now that he's kind of locked things down in between the pipes. So. Ramo's not in Calgary anymore for a reason, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, that's going around shopping and looking for their solution. So I mean, yeah, as a backup goalie, sure, maybe, I don't know.
I don't think he's any better than Enroth though. Like I think it's like a really lateral move at that point.
Yeah.
Kevin, any thoughts on that?
That's the same point I was going to make, was that, is he really an upgrade from Enroth? I don't really see it with Ramo. Ramo had an excellent KHL career for Avangard, but it's never translated to the NHL.
No.
And I don't know. Now you've got the whole situation of Garrett Sparks getting suspended, Jonas Enroth getting waived, and Ramo getting a tryout while Enroth is still with the team. Like, what's next with these guys? If I'm Roman Polak or another veteran defenseman, you got to watch yourselves, because they may have a $20 million 5-man tandem and an NHL goalie down playing for the Marlies.
I mean, at some point they're going to run out of cap space to bury these guys, right?
With the Marlies, yeah, the Marlies cap space is going to be screwed for sure.
Oh goodness. All right, so I put this in the notes because obviously this happened while we were recording last week, and Paul did a really good segment about this on his show. I believe it was Monday. with the McDavid situation where he got pulled by the concussion spotter, and Patrick Maroon kind of went off about it. And I mean, my thoughts on this is it's like you got to kind of save these guys from themselves, because these guys are going to go. Like we've seen guys want to go from Siller, like we had who was it in Dallas that basically had the heart attack and wanted to go. Rich Heverly, right? And he wanted to go. So I mean, you got to kind of protect these guys from themselves. And I liked what you said about it, Paul. And I don't know if you can kind of quick note it. A couple of things you said, because I thought your show Monday was really, really good on this topic. So I hope you don't mind. Oh,
that's good. No, well, first of all, I mean, really, this started coming to mind last year. There was a play, and I can't remember what game it was, but it was a Sharks game where you'll remember Jumbo Joe Thornton took a big spill and appeared to hit his head on the ice, and he tried to get up, and he kind of looked like I think Dan Rusnowski used the analogy, privately to me, but I don't think he'll care that I say this on the air, but that he looked like a baby calf who was just born, where they can't, he kept stumbling on the ice. And so, at that instant, it looked as though he may have suffered some sort of, head injury. I don't know. We don't know. Nobody outside of him and the trainers really know what happened. I mean, I remember him saying very vividly, there's something going on with the steel around here, and blaming his skates. But at that point, there's obviously enough suspicion that something may have occurred, that I felt like he should have been checked out. And what we do know about concussion research at this point in time, at least, is that in the immediate aftermath of somebody suffering a concussion, you're very vulnerable. Some really severe damage can be done if you're getting hit again in the head after suffering a concussion. So this is a very fragile time. And a guy like Jumbo Joe Thornton, who's as competitive as he is, he's not going to want to leave the game. And are you telling me that Peter DeBoer is supposed to wrestle him out of the game when he has, he's behind the bench trying to win a game himself? I mean, so to me, you have to take this out of the hands of the coaching staff and the player at some point in time. And so for me, that's when I really started thinking about this. And obviously the NFL had this rule already in place. It's called the Julian Edelman rule, because there was a similar situation with the Patriots wide receiver a couple years ago. And so I applaud the NHL having the spotters in place. Now, obviously, the Oilers, in the heat of the moment, it's pretty frustrating to lose your best player when you have a power play. But when you look at the big picture of it, we're talking about game 26 or something like this, here in December. Do you really want to risk McDavid's long-term health? And obviously, he's saying, look, I hit my chin. I held my chin. It's obvious to anybody. I don't know enough about concussions, but couldn't you potentially get concussed hitting your chin? Who knows what goes on in terms of the rattling of the brain and all that. So this isn't my expertise, obviously, but
sure.
I thought it was legit that they pulled him off. And, I ended up, in a piece for the Merc that day, talking to a couple players in the Sharks who also were pulled out by spotters. Chris Tierney against the Kings on November 30th, and it was Joel Ward against the Nashville Predators on October 29th. And both of those guys said, we were upset sort of in the heat of the moment, because we knew we weren't concussed and we wanted to still play, but we understand the big picture. And he said the guys in the room and he thinks around the league do understand the big picture, that this is not just about one game. This is about your long-term health and your career. So Patrick Maroon, going back to the McDavid, made some sort of comments about it's a man's game, and, head injuries are sort of part of the sport. And, I think that just shows right there in that instant why you do need to have these independent spotters, because if that's sort of the attitude, these guys aren't going to take themselves out.
That's it too. And my thoughts, I think that's the one thing about concussions that's a huge misconception. You don't have to get waffle boarded over the head to get a concussion. Like, you can get a concussion from, there's many things. You could actually not have your head hit at all and get a concussion. If you take a good enough shot in the back and you kind of jiggle your spinal there a little bit, that can concuss people too. And people don't realize that, it doesn't have to be this big gratuitous head impact to get a concussion from it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've heard, like in the NFL, is that, you think of the big hits across the middle or the hits to the head as being the concussion plays, but there's oftentimes a lot of like little baby concussions that occur at the line of scrimmage every time on every snap, because the O-line and the defensive linemen, their heads kind of collide like rams, right? And that's where a lot of the kind of CTE and brain damage is taking place. It's not from, a receiver getting lit up by a safety going across the middle. It's these, sort of really mundane plays that happen on this mundane contact that happens on almost every single play.
Right. Kevin, any thoughts on this topic here?
Kind of sideways on this. So
Okay.
at the Barracuda goals game today, Paul, Ryan Garbutt got hit right in the cheek by the puck. And at first it was like, oh, how did he not break his jaw on that? But he made it to the bench under his own power, but it took him a very long time. And so the next stoppage of play, he went to the locker room, and I thought, okay, nice, concussion protocol. Within 3 minutes, he was back on the bench. And I was just wondering, is there a concussion protocol in the AHL that's different from the NHL? Because I couldn't believe that he was suddenly back on the bench.
Yeah, I do think, well, I mean, first of all, they don't have the spotter system. So that would be all voluntary. And, I don't know what the oversight really is there in the AHL. That's a good question. And I haven't had to really come across that case yet in my own, covering the Barracuda, where I've kind of really had to look deep into that. But yeah, I had the same thought. I wasn't sure. So it did hit him in the cheek, because I don't know if you heard the broadcast.
That's what it looked like, because
we weren't entirely sure up top, but it kind of looked like, it got him up high, and then he was wobbling a bit.
Yeah, I had a pretty good vantage point, and it looked like it got him right in the point of the jaw. What's up?
Were you in the rink today?
Yeah, I was. I was down low, and it looked like it got him right in the point of the jaw.
Yeah, I couldn't tell from the broadcast. I couldn't from the video. I couldn't see exactly where it got him. Drew, any thoughts on this?
And again, going back to what Paul said, it's about the big picture here. It's like, yeah, you're upset that McDavid missed a power play. But again, you're in the regular season. It's the second period. All right. It's a kind of important part of the game, but in the big picture of everything, it's really not that important, especially when you have players like Ryan Clough, for example, who have had to end their career because of these concussions. So I like that they have the spotters, keep the players safe, keep all, interests out of it. Just keep them safe at all costs.
Right. eFlow CC in the Google chat said it was right in the cheek. It was right in front of him at the rink. So there you go. Moving on from.
Well, I'm Googling right now AHL concussion protocol, and I can't see much of anything. So
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
it's so hard to find like stuff like that on the AHL. From questions that I've been asked, and I've tried to look, and I have no clue. The the Vegas Golden Knights got denied their trademark. So, man, Vegas has had a tough run so far. They had that, big thing, name reveal, where everything kind of didn't go well, and now they're getting spiked on their trademark. The issue is with the College of St. Rose in Albany, New York. They hold the trademark. It's important to note they don't have a hockey team, though. They've had the trademark since 2004, but the NHL doesn't see this as an issue. This has got to be really embarrassing for Bill Foley at this point, one would have to imagine. Kevin, what do you think?
Geez, it's always something with these guys. Like, oh my goodness. But the thing is, they've had months and months of this where since they trademarked all of these names, and it's only coming out now. That just seems like a cash grab to me. And if that's the case, well, they'll probably walk away with something, because I think the NHL and Bill Foley are dead set on calling them the Golden Knights at this point, because rather than save themselves even further embarrassment by changing the team name again.
Oh, but yeah, I don't see that happening.
Just, I don't know. I question the timing of all of this.
I really, like, my thoughts quickly on that was like, too, is just like, it seemed really weird that was the way things kind of went down. And I didn't think when there was talk of like this even thing, I didn't think this would be a story, to be completely honest. Like, I thought this was going to be this was kind of just a story for the sake of a story before they actually had it actually spiked. Paul, any thoughts on this Vegas situation?
Well, I just, in general, I think that they're calling them the Vegas Golden Knights instead of Las Vegas, which is actually the name of the city, is stupid, and it irritates me. So
Yes.
on that principle alone, I'd like to see this name derailed.
I just think it's too many words. I think that's what their problem is with it.
That's true. That probably is the case. So maybe go back to the Aces. I don't know. I mean, I know that they want to. I know that they want to stay away from the gambling metaphors and all that, and
sure.
I can totally understand that. But you know, the law is the law, and if they have the trademark on the name,
yeah,
that's the way it is.
Drew,
Probably should do a little bit of homework before you unveil your name.
Yeah, Drew.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin on this. That does kind of seem like a cash grab because we all kind of had an idea of what the name was going to be before the name actually got released. But I mean, they have the money to spend. I don't see them changing the name, unfortunately. You know, they really like that logo, so they're not going to change it. But yeah, I think it's a cash grab. I think they're just like, oh, you want to use that name? Oh, you're going to have to pay up for that.
Well, why does the logo look so damn similar? Like, and how did they not sort of? They had to know, right?
I think it's just the name. Like the logo is not really. I don't think the logo is similar at all.
Isn't
like,
the mask kind of? I mean, I guess it's just a standard Knights mask, but
yeah, it looks more the Golden Knights logo for the school. From what I remember, I should have had it so I could show it to everyone. Looks. I would liken it more to the London Knights logo than the Vegas Golden Knights, to be completely honest.
They could call themselves the Vegas Golden Spartans and then have San Jose State get all upset.
And Michigan State.
And Michigan State. Yeah.
I think you're
golden
right.
Showers.
Yes, the golden showers. I think
God.
at the end of the day, I think money makes this go away. I just think if you're going to spend money, then why didn't you just throw some money at London and be done with it? And just be the Las Vegas Knights. I don't know. That would be me, but I don't have $500 million lying around to buy a team and name it myself. So
You don't? Jeez.
Sorry, guys. I know. I'm sorry. The owners look pretty dead set against the Olympic participation in 2018. I don't blame them. And it was funny because Bettman kind of reminded the players this past week that without NHL sanctioned participation, they would be in breach of contract. Which I think is funny because a guy like Ted Leonsis is not going to stop Ovechkin from going. So it really some owners, I guess, probably are going to be pretty upset if their players want to jet. And I don't think you're going to see like a lot of Canadian guys or American guys jetting. I think it's going to be a lot of European players that would jump to the Olympics. But at the same time, like when you have an owner like Ted Leonsis who's just going to let it happen, I mean, do you really want to be that owner come free agency that was like, oh, I remember you didn't let me go to the Olympics.
Oh, I remember. For all the South Park people out there.
Kevin, what do you any thoughts on this?
No, I still don't expect them to go to the Olympics. I think it's just going to be, I don't know. We'll see. In a way, I kind of want to see how the amateur game will translate in the Olympics in today's age when everything is dominated by professional sports. But yeah, I as much as I still deep down would like to see the NHLers play, I don't think it's going to happen.
Paul, what do you think about this? I mean, obviously for the NHL, I think that everyone can agree, like, there's not really a whole lot of monetary, North Korea or South Korea, not really, obviously a big hockey market. What are your thoughts on this, Paul?
I actually think that it would be a big mistake to not go, and I might be sort of alone on this. I obviously love the NHL players in the Olympics. I think it's the best sporting tournament, around. And, I really think the problem is that you did this stupid World Cup thing this year, and you did this stupid bye week in order to get the players to play this 3-on-3 tournament. So now we have this cram schedule this year that just really doesn't make much of any sense. And to me, the World Cup just wasn't worth it. It was okay. I think that you're jam-packed in the middle of a busy sports schedule at that time of year between pennant races in baseball, college football, NFL kicking up. So who other than the diehard hockey fan was willing to watch this tournament? It's only us, the people who really love hockey. I mean, I don't think that you're really pulling in any new viewers as a result of holding this tournament, where the Olympics, even if these games are played in the middle of the night, when the NHL players go to the Olympics in February after the NFL is over, they get center stage in the sports world across the globe for those couple weeks. And even in Sochi, I mean, not the greatest ideal TV times for those games to be held. Yet all I heard on KMBR when Canada eliminated the United States in the semifinals, wall to wall from morning to night that day, Ray Ratto and, people, even shows Gary Radnich, people that don't usually talk about hockey, all they were talking about was that game from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. that night. When do you ever get hockey get that kind of a stage in an American market like this? You just don't. So there are going to be a couple games in that tournament that will really get a lot of media attention, here in the United States and around the world. And I just think just because it's, in a faraway place like South Korea doesn't mean that we should sort of break what has been a really, really good thing for the most part since the NHL players decided to go. And we're obviously going to go to Beijing in 2022 because that would be ridiculous to not want to jump into that market. So I don't know. I just don't see why we would break this up. I'm all about tossing out the World Cup. I loved the Canada Cups and the World Cups as a kid growing up. But once we got that taste of NHLers in the Olympics, that thing sort of lost its romance and its luster. And like I said, I mean, it was hard for me to get fired up for the tournament this year.
Paul, do you think that the NHL was intentionally using the World Cup to sabotage Olympic participation? Either the World Cup is successful, so the NHL doesn't need to go to the Olympics, or the World Cup is unsuccessful, thus proving why should they bother going to the Olympics?
No, I just think it was a cash grab. I mean, speaking of cash grabs, I mean, the league and the NHLPA made quite a healthy chunk of change off of that thing. And, I think that that's really what it comes down to is they're looking, when those parties at the end of the day, ultimately, they're looking for ways to always expand their revenue. That's capitalism. That's business. Always want to keep churning that thing and bringing in more money. And I think that from maybe like a money standpoint, maybe just the contract, like the NHL doesn't get a contract to play in a TV contract to play in the Olympics. Right. But they got a big bag of cash from ESPN to hold that tournament and things of that nature. So I think it's almost as much as like the NHL going, well, let's keep this to ourselves. Why are we giving out this great best on best tournament? Why are we giving this away to the IOC to make money off of it? Why are we giving it to NBC Sports to make money off of it? This is our product. We're shutting down our league for 2.5 weeks and sending all that money for somebody else to make. Why are we doing that? So, the Olympic, I would say you still are profiting from that, but it's tangential. It's not 1-to-1 like it is with the World Cup.
Right. Yeah. And I enjoyed the World Cup, but it wasn't, even I.
You can't tell me that you were as fired up for Canada versus Team Europe as you were for Canada versus Sweden and Sochi.
No, it's funny because the World Cup ended for me when Team North America got eliminated because that was my jam. It was like after that, like I just felt so like it was just so deflating after that, right? Like I just that for a team that at first I was like, what is this nonsense? But no, I mean obviously Canada Europe wasn't exactly the finale I think anyone wanted to watch. I think if it was who did they beat? Sweden? I think that would have probably
been better.
Drew a few more eyeballs. But Canada Europe. I mean it was just we knew the outcome before it happened. Like I don't know, it was just predictable at that point and just kind of I definitely wasn't excited for that final, but I enjoyed the tournament overall for what it was. I think I was so starved for hockey at that time because I don't really watch any other sports. That doesn't help anything, but I mean to try and sit here and as much as I enjoyed it and call it a success, I can't even do that. and I would like to, but it wasn't the case.
I mean, there's just so much tradition in international hockey, and as you know, as a Canadian, you get your blood boiling a little bit to take on countries like the US and Russia and things like that. And it's like, how do I get like fired up to take on a collection of Danes, Germans, Slovenians, Slovakians?
Right.
You know, like it was just like that.
And I feel like, and I feel like for most of our audience too, I mean, it's hard when USA was really, really bad. Like that's not good for the tournament at all.
Yeah,
like that really hurt the tournament.
Oh, I mean, and especially from the whole goals of the league was to, I mean, let's be honest, when they say we're going to grow the sport through the World Cup, what they're really saying is we want to get more American eyes on hockey. I mean, that's
right.
You know, that's quick translation. And when they get bounced the way they did, it just ain't happening.
Bad. All right. So last little bit of news. The Leafs trade Peter Holland to Arizona. I mean, they had to do something with Peter Holland. He wasn't really getting used because they have so many depths and everything. And I mean, it's a good move. I mean, Chaika, man, he's a wizard.
Chaika's a genius. My
he's
God.
A genius. Like he basically, it's like, well, if you re-sign him, then we get, I think, what is a 6th round pick. But if you don't like him, then we just, gave him to you for nothing. Go John Chaika. What are your thoughts on what John Chaika's done in Arizona, Paul?
Well, it's a small sample size.
Sure.
Kind of at this point in time, but I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested. I guess that's the way I would put it. Nice to get young mind, fresh mind into the game, and I think that I'm really excited to see what this team looks like, a couple of years from now when they're grown up and they blossom a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. Do either of you guys have any thoughts on the Holland trade, or do you want me to move on?
I just think it's insane that Arizona was able to get a serviceable 3rd, 4th line center kind of thing for literally nothing until they re-sign him or trade him. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and it's a great move for them.
All right, so let's move on to our mailbag. And as always, thank you to you guys watching for all your questions. We've got some questions for Paul off the hop here. Paul, is there any coaches coaches or players that are easier or harder to talk to in your experience?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which can you name any names or?
I mean, obviously my expertise is within the Sharks locker room. I mean, it would be tough for me to really comment on a lot of coaches around the league because you see them maybe once or twice a season. So, well, I mean, it always comes down to guys who want to really talk. I mean, I get the impression. I don't think I'm breaking any headlines here for anybody who watches the Sharks post games, but I get the general impression that out of the jobs of being a captain, talking to the media isn't one of Joe Pavelski's favorite roles.
Right.
So if you have a guy that doesn't necessarily enjoy that role, that can be more difficult. So in those situations, I'm much more likely to go seek a thought or comment from Logan Couture, who's much more willing and embracing of that role to talk. But I mean, in terms of, and then, a guy like Tommy Wingels, he gets quoted all the time in the press, and that's because he's very, very good in that role. He's very, very articulate and very, very thoughtful. So a guy like, Wingels, you need a good quote. You go to him quite a bit. Martin Jones, not a big talker,
right.
He's a quiet guy. I don't know. I mean, in the room amongst the guys, but he's not a loud, flamboyant personality like a Brent Burns or anything like that. And, goalies are a different breed as well. But he's very into his process and
right.
Routine and calm demeanor. You've heard all the cliches. So he's not going to necessarily be the guy that's going to give you the quote that's going to, send Twitter a buzz or anything like that. So,
right.
From just a reporter standpoint, I prefer I prefer guys that don't mind talking and guys like Pavelski who seem to not relish that role as much. I use them when I feel like they're needed, but if he feels somewhat uncomfortable or doesn't enjoy doing that, I'm not going to go to him every day.
Right. Yeah, that's funny because I don't always.
I mean, Peter DeBoer from a coach's standpoint is terrific.
Right.
And he's very blunt. He's very smart. Messaging is really one thing that he's good at. And I think Todd McClellan was good as well. I think he sort of understood how the game worked, how the media worked, and knew how to play within that.
That's cool. Yeah, because I think like Logan Couture, I don't always enjoy what comes out of his mouth, but I appreciate the candor. I appreciate the fact that he's not going to just sit there and be like, oh, got to keep playing our game, pucks in deep,
right.
Usual cliche answers that you're just like, yes, okay, I could hear this from 400 other guys in the league.
Right.
So I always kind of appreciate his candor for sure. So
I mean, who do you guys like hearing from when you're watching the post games? I mean, I'd be interested as interested in hearing like a fan standpoint on that kind of thing as a reporter standpoint.
That's a fantastic.
Like, do you guys get a sense of, which guys like to talk, which guys don't, and who's going to give you a solid answer and who's going to skirt?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I kind of, from a fan's perspective, for me, I just want to hear the guy that's going to actually give an answer and not just some played out cliche answer. I appreciate honesty, and I think like guys with more personality. Obviously, I think that if there's something color that this game needs, it's more guys like PK Subban, who are just out there and they have personality. I think like it's
funny because he like is ostracized to some extent for being that way.
And that's exactly where I was going to go.
Because the culture of the game is so humble, right?
Yeah.
Like the culture of the game is don't call attention to myself.
That's right. And I think that's
for the most part. I mean, then
I think if you want it, like, to me, this is what you need. If you want to sell this game in America, that's what you need. You need more personalities like PK Subban on TV. You look at all the other big sports; they have big personalities. Basketball, big personalities. Football, big personalities. And then hockey. I appreciate that. It's a more humble game, but I think if you really want to break through, you need guys like PK Subban. You need guys like Brent Burns. You need guys that are going to come out and say stuff and have personality.
Well, and I think it's been good, to see Brent Burns kind of come out of his shell. I guess over maybe the last 8 months or 6 months, and kind of be a little more willing to do the song and dance with the press. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing for him because he's like he's like a media machine himself, right? Just his own Twitter, and he doesn't need us to communicate with fans.
Right. Yeah.
He's his own brand, and he can go directly to the fans himself. But I do think I can see where you're coming from. I think that's a good point in terms of, growing the game in the U.S.
Yeah, I think you need more personalities, and unfortunately, especially up north, we get all crunched up and stupid about it.
But I'll say, speaking of players who are good, I mean, there's nobody in the game that's better than Sidney Crosby, and there's nobody in the game that's demanded, that's
right
under demand the way that Sidney Crosby is. But in the few experiences that I've had in being able to interview him, he gives the reporters as much time as they need. He'll you'll ask him a question, he'll give you a thoughtful answer. He doesn't just go to the cliches. And I do think that he's not a personality like PK Subban or Brent Burns that necessarily you market, but I do appreciate having a guy like that in that role. I mean, that the demands on his time are more extreme than any other player in the league, and yet he handles it over and over again with so much grace.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. So you've, if for those that don't know, and shame on you if you don't, you've been doing color on the Barracuda games, just the home games?
Yeah, pretty much just the home games. And it's, there's some times where, like on Thursday, I had a lot going on, so I kind of opted out of it. But, for the most part, when I can.
Is this something like if because obviously you have your website, you have your podcast, the blog, you're reporting, and is this something that you would do? Is this something that you would do like as your actual gig if the opportunity presented itself, or are you kind of happy doing what you're doing?
Well, I mean, I guess it would all depend on the offer. A full-time broadcasting gig, money talks. So I would probably, not turn that away if the opportunity came forward. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, when it comes to color commentary and when it comes to broadcasting and those type of things, when we're talking about at the NHL level, those jobs are going to go to the Jamie Bakers and the Brett Hedekins and guys that have actually, been in the game and, are recognized faces, from actually playing hockey and things like that. So I don't see any of those type of situations coming across my desk anytime soon.
No, I'm just curious, right? Because I know sometimes I get questions like, well, would you do this professionally? And I to me, like, this is, I love hockey. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love the game, but this is a hobby for me, and I'm really content with that, right? Like, I don't have any delusions of getting scooped up by a major network or anything like that.
And quite frankly, I mean, you might be in a better off position because, like, people don't understand, like, when you do this type of thing full time and 82 games a year and playoffs, like, it really is a grind and it really is a hard job. You don't get, when you guys are off on the weekends and you're watching the games and having a cup, and having a beer or whatever, it's like, you don't get weekends,
right.
Your girlfriend wants to go on a Saturday night or Friday night, you can't do that. So your nieces want you to come to their dance recital, but you have game 6 of the second round or something. So it is a dream job, and to be able to get paid to cover sports is incredible, but it is a tough job.
Yeah,
it is a tough job because there's so many restrictions on your time, or even being a fan of other sports. Like, how many Giants fans are out there, or Sharks fans are out there that are also Giants fans? Remember that game where Mad Bum pitched that in that 1-game playoff against Pittsburgh a couple of years? Like, we had to cover an exhibition game. Like, who wants to cover a freaking preseason game when you have a do or die playoff game going on? But that's the reality if you're a beat reporter.
That's fair. I guess another question I have, and maybe this is just a personal question from me. I tune in as much as humanly possible. I am so swamped with school and stuff to the Gackle Report, and you've been kind of solo, which I give you all the props in the world for, because I don't think I could do this solo. Like, I don't think I could come on here and just talk by myself and be remotely interesting. How has that been? Was that a big adjustment trying to do the podcast solo?
Kind of, not really in a lot of ways. Surprisingly, it's been simpler in some regards because, I mean, the big part of this is just from a scheduling standpoint.
Sure.
Because I have such a tight window to be able to do everything that I do in a day because, as someone like you follow it closely, I'll do like a podcast, and then I'll usually pump out a couple 700, 800 word stories from Sharks practice and maybe like a 700, 800 word story from Barracuda practice. So it's like Barracuda start practicing at 10, Sharks start practicing at 11, and you're trying to squeeze a podcast in before that. So last year doing it with Ross, which is incredible. But that really required me more often than not to be up, by 7:30 or 8. And oftentimes that's after a game night, where I don't get home till midnight. And oftentimes it's hard to fall asleep till 2 a.m. because your brain's so active at a late hour, it's hard to wind it down. So that was really taking its grind on me.
Fair enough.
And now the way it's going this year, and we're going to bring Ross in. Ross is going to be, he hasn't disappeared. He's going to be around the Gackle Report, but he's on his book tour right now. So, it's sort of been kind of tough, and he has kids, and does a lot of stuff with travel baseball and things like that. But when I do go solo, the thing I like about it is I can really kind of get up at my time, do it on my schedule, and kind of put my thoughts together a little bit easier. Last year it seemed like I was flying by the seat of my pants a little bit more, but then the benefit to that last year, obviously, you have a guy like Ross who's covered the team for so long. He's just like a treasure chest of knowledge and ideas. And it's fun to banter back and forth. But I kind of do find it fun to do it on my own in a way, too.
That's cool. How's your brother? I haven't.
He's good.
Your brother
You know, he's
forever.
doing real good. He's
Good.
up in he's GM of a wine bar in San Francisco and doing
Right.
really well for himself. So he's pretty slammed himself in the weeds these days with work. But I know that it's a really awesome place. It's called the Barrel Room in the financial district, and good opportunity came across his plate as well. So
Yeah, can't argue with that.
He manages a wine bar and he's slammed. Well, he needs to take it easy there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you'll have to tell him we all say hi, because I haven't talked to Patrick.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love that.
All right, I want to move on to one more little topic here. This Gary Lawless thing, because I always like Canadian media firestorms. So Gary Lawless, who for those who don't know, is based out of Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So obviously, has a dog in the fight here. Basically stated that Patrick Laine would end up being the better player than Auston Matthews. Drew, you've been quiet forever. Say something.
I don't like articles like this, especially now. I mean, look, they're like 30 games into their career. 30 freaking games, people. Like, just give it some time. Give it at least a season. I mean, there are some like decent points in there. Like, Laine isn't as adjusted to North American coaching or North American ice kind of thing. And granted, Auston Matthews played in Europe, but he still grew up in the North American system kind of thing. But it's like it's so objective, and there's no hard evidence for it. It's just kind of guessing, and I'm personally not huge on that. I don't necessarily disagree with them. I don't know how I feel about the article itself.
Kevin.
I've been on the Matthews should be the number 1 overall pick. Drew. Drew's making me crack up on our little chat here, guys. That's sorry,
I'm sorry. I'm not.
But anyway,
I'm
but I've been on the Auston Matthews deserved to be the number 1 overall pick bandwagon from the start. I still think that he's an incredible player. Right now, it's easy to say that Patrick Laine could possibly be the better of the two for the fact that he's the second leading goal scorer in the entire NHL, last I checked. So, yeah, people remember goals a whole lot more than plays getting set up. And then the other thing with Auston Matthews is Auston Matthews is getting a lot of looks that he's not capitalizing on. Like, his point production has been fine, but it could be so much higher if he would finish on some of the plays that he's not scoring on. So there is that respect to it. But yeah, like Drew said, it's really early in the game to be making that comparison.
I think for me, when I look at these two players, I kind of think Crosby Ovechkin kind of, where I think Auston Matthews might be the more complete player and Patrick Laine is the better, just pure goal scorer, right? I mean, any opportunity I get to watch the Jets play, I will watch Patrick Laine. That doesn't mean I don't like I don't like Auston Matthews. I think Auston Matthews is a great player. I think that he's got so many cool players surrounding at the same time. Like, he's got Mitch Marner and everything else. I think that it's easy because I think Laine, other than maybe Ehlers, is really dynamic on that Jets team. Whereas I think Auston Matthews has to kind of fight a little bit more for the spotlight in Toronto with a guy like Mitch Marner and William Nylander. There's a couple of really nice pieces there. Paul, what's your thoughts on this? I know you're a Winnipeg guy.
Yeah, well, I would have to agree first of all, and I think Ian, if you listen to my podcast enough, that I'm really not a fan of like jumping the gun on. Like,
right. No, I know.
Things. And, I think I'm critical of, some media personalities around here that are always, you have to be the first to say this and, come up with this sort of hard line take on things. So yeah, it's a fun thing to debate, right? I mean,
sure. Oh, absolutely.
Having, over beers or discussion after a game, I think it's a fun thing to toss around. I have an obvious bias because I am a Winnipeg guy, and it's pretty cool seeing Laine in a Jets jersey, and ripping it up the way he is. It's hard not to think back to my own childhood watching Timu do what he did. Having said, well, a couple things. I mean, I do think that generally speaking, just a center is more valuable than a wingman. They're going to touch the puck more. They're involved in so much more of the play. So if I was asked who am I going to draft first overall, I don't know if at this juncture that I could say that I would go with the wingman over. I think the only, wingman in the NHL right now that you could even consider really building your team around would be Alexander Ovechkin, because he is such a special player. But beyond that, would you want to waste a number 1 pick on a guy who's going to touch the puck so little compared to, obviously a centerman? And we obviously know how important defensemen are in the National Hockey League.
Absolutely.
So that would be sort of my qualms against Laine. Having said that, he might just very well prove to be like in that Ovechkin category. And that shot is really something else. I mean, there's just not a lot of guys that are ever going to have a shot like that. And he can get it off too. He's like Burns in that sense, where you think that he's, covered or, that he doesn't really have much and he still manages to get the shot through. So I look at that from a Burnsian standpoint and I go, that's really a nice weapon to have on your team. And, I've seen as, even the season's progressed, him adding more dimensions to his game. We've seen in the last couple of weeks some more brilliant passing from him. I think the way he set up Brian Little last week, forget which game that was, but they all kind of blur together. And then, we're seeing some defensive things too, where, he's coming back and stripping pucks in a Datsukian type of manner. So it'll be fun to watch and keep debating it, I guess.
Yeah, because when I did my mock draft going in, and this is what I said. I basically said, if you're Toronto, you have to take Austin Matthews, because when you have a center like that and you don't have a center anywhere, how can you not take the centerman?
I agree.
It was just, there was no choice. It was the most easiest pick that those two guys had to make. Everyone had to get, more difficult as you got past Winnipeg, because those two guys were going to go. If Toronto was set at center, then take Patrick Laine. Absolutely take Patrick Laine, but they weren't. So Austin Matthews was the guy they had to take.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So let's move on to the last segment here. Just want to talk a little bit of Barracuda, and why not? Because other than that Thursday was not a fun a game to watch. But aside from that, man, San Diego Gulls came into town. I think they were second in the division. Paul, if you want to correct me on that if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
9. I think they had won a bunch, 9 of their last 10. Yeah. That one, so they came into San Jose super hot, and they got shut down.
Yeah. And the Gulls beat the Barracuda in back-to-back games a couple weeks ago on the weekend too. So it was a nice, clean bit of revenge for the Barracuda this weekend. I missed Saturday's game, but I was there at Sunday afternoon's game, and it was thorough domination in pretty much every category you could have, except perhaps the power play. And even then, the Barracuda scored a power play goal in this game. It was interesting it sounded like Saturday's game was very lopsided as well. Paul, I know you were obviously there. Ian, I'm sure you watched that game.
I watched it, yep.
And so the tone of Sunday's game got set off from the start. The Gulls were playing very physically. I'm sure Dallas Eakins lit a fire under them before today's game, but within about 5 minutes, that fire just fizzled out, and Barracuda contained them and never looked back.
Yeah, that game today, and both games are really good. I think because what I don't know, Paul, and this is a question for you, I guess. My opinion of the Barracuda from my monitor is that we when they started out, it seemed like there was some really good individual efforts, but not much cohesion to start, and now it seems like everything's just kind of coalescing. You're getting those individual efforts, but you're getting them across the board now. Guys like Tim Heat are standing out, Timo's heating up, and then guys that just have been good the whole time. O'Regan, Chartier, both guys that have been really, really good, basically wire to wire so far. What is your thoughts on the Barracuda so far this year?
I mean, I'm really impressed you had this young team. We knew there was a lot of talent on this team. But traditionally speaking, you don't have a group of 20-year-olds coming into the American Hockey League and really, coming in and dominating or taking over or winning the way that they have. And then you consider on top of that they opened the season with just 5 of their first 16 games on home ice as a young rookie team like that. Talking to guys like John McCarthy, Roy Sommer, on the eve of the season, they were like, yeah, we really don't know what to expect. I mean, we think we're going to be good. We think we have talent, but how is it all going to come together? What's our maturity? What's our poise going to be like? It was a big question mark for everybody. I remember watching that first game in Stockton and being like, okay, these guys are going to be pretty dang good.
Yeah.
And they certainly have been. And I think, depth on all 4 lines. I think like the Sharks, when you talk about rolling 4 lines last year, more of the last year's version of the Sharks, I think we're seeing that from this Barracuda team where the 4th line was good today. Nikita Yepilov's had a really nice afternoon today, working hard. They have depth on the blue line. I thought Mirko Mueller had a fantastic game. You're not necessarily offensive standpoint, but his puck retrieval throughout the night, it seems like every time he went back to pick up the puck off the end boards in his own zone, he was making a good play to get it out and leading the breakout pretty quickly. So we've seen a lot of progression on his end. I like Heed. I like, Joakim Ryan reminds me of sort of like a baby Dylan DeMello. Mm-hmm. And, even guys like Patrick McNally have shown just tremendous growth over the last couple of years. And now you're getting the goaltending too. Good to see Troy Grosnick, and the defense around him, the team defense these last 2 games is really what stood out. I mean, they held him to just 15 shots yesterday. A San Diego Gulls team that was averaging 33 shots a game, coming in second in the entire AHL. They are averaging 3.5 goals per game, and they just snuffed these guys out. I mean, they suffocated them. Yeah. They could not get anything going, really. Troy said he didn't think he faced a grade A shot the entire game yesterday. He said their best scoring chances were shots they missed the net on them.
That's why he started just leaving his goal stick everywhere at the end.
Yeah, I guess so. He wanted to make it a little more challenging.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
A little challenging for him down the stretch. But heck, man, they made it easy on him in some regards. They really kept everything to the perimeter. There weren't a lot of grade A's, but he's not letting in the softies that we saw last season.
Right. And that's the thing that I've noticed. Yeah. And Zach Devine, who also a friend of the show, has come, that was his thing too, was like, there was goals last year that there's saves that he's made this year that last year were goals.
Yeah.
Like they were surefire goals. And this year we're not seeing that. What is your thoughts been on Mantas Armalis so far? Cause I thought he got off to a rough start. He kind of I said this on a previous show, but just the way he kind of moved around the net was kind of weird to me a little bit, but now he seems like he looks like an actual goalie again.
Yeah. Just in speaking with him, I know that it's been a really difficult adjustment coming over here for North American hockey, and he really didn't know what to expect. And he was handcuffed in his first, the rookie showcase games, and in the preseason was kind of a little overwhelmed because shots come from everywhere in North America. It's a small rink. And he said, over there, in Europe, when the puck's out there on the perimeter, you're not expecting a shot, and you can kind of relax a little bit and wait for the puck to come back into the middle. Here, a guy can pick the puck off the boards in the corner right around the goal line and fire a shot at the net. So that was different for him, and he's also not used to all the traffic in front.
Right.
And the fact that goals get scored, over here on second chance opportunities and deflections and things like that. This whole idea of let's go, low to high and get a whole bunch of traffic in front of the net. That's a new concept to him. So I know early on he said it was all a big adjustment. And, I know Nabby said, in talking to Nabby about this, that he had to go through the same sort of growth, the same sort of evolution when he came over from Russia. So it's really been good for him to have Nabby as sort of a mentor. But I just sort of expect him to continue to sort of take these baby steps. And I think we're seeing inconsistency from him still. We'll see a shutout where he's awesome. And then we'll see a game like Thursday night where he lets in 3 goals. and a few softies. And I think that that's sort of going to be probably what we see from Armalis this year. And you just hope that as the season progresses, that the bright spots are more and more, and the soft spots are fewer and fewer. But I do think it is a big adjustment to come over here.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of good play. Sorry, Kevin, did you want to say something? I keep cutting.
I just wanted to throw out that Troy Grosnick now has not allowed a goal in 4 straight appearances between the injury, the game he was injured and got pulled from, the game he relieved Armalis from, and the 2 games this weekend. I thought his vision looked incredibly strong today. He looked like, I was watching his eye movement, and he looked dead on the whole time tracking the puck, and that's a huge adjustment from last year. I didn't mean to cut you off on Armalis, but I did want to touch that up on Grosnick.
No, it's good.
Well, I think it is now 8 straight shutout periods that Grosnick has, 64 straight saves since the injury. And if you go back to before the injury, his entire shutout streak is at 181-36.
Right.
So pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been really good this year. I mean, if you want to look at guys, to me, like, and I'll throw this to you next, but to me, like, some of the most improved guys on the team, if I had to go like one from every position, I don't know if I could pick a forward, but in goal, definitely Troy Grosnick, super improved. And on the blue line, I've been really impressed by the improvement that Julius Bergman's shown this year.
Yeah, he's been really good.
I thought he had a rough go last year, but I've been really happy with him. Like I wrote a couple of days ago, I mean, I wouldn't get your San Jose Sharks Julius Bergman jersey ready yet, but the improvement is still, significant.
And that's the nice thing, is that you can keep these guys down in the AHL and just literally let them season for like a few seasons. And there's no rush to have to get like a Julius Bergman up to the NHL. For that matter, there's no rush to have to get a Mirko Mueller up to the NHL at this point, because you have really 7 solid defensemen. And I think that's going to be good for him, because people forget he's only 21 years old.
Right.
You want to write the book on a guy, after 1 season. I mean, this kind of goes back to the Matthews Laine discussion to an extent, but really defensemen, for the most part, don't come into their own until their late 20s. And I would say a defenseman's prime is probably in his early 30s, unlike forwards, where I think you can do a lot of damage. And we're seeing this obviously in the NHL right now, where so many young players are coming in and having an impact. But, you're going to be at your fastest in your early 20s. You're probably in your prime in your late 20s. And by 30, you're on the downslope.
Right.
But with defensemen, I think it's the opposite situation. So I think I think it's good for Mirko to sit down there and get to the point where he's just comfortable and confident, because I think confidence was really what he was struggling with last year. And he was expecting, like, I need to do big things to be in the NHL. I need to be an NHLer, and I got to make big plays and show everybody that I'm above and beyond everybody else. And that's just not how it works. It really is a day-to-day process of getting better, getting more comfortable. I think he's getting better now, but I can't wait to see what he's like at 24, 25.
Right.
So he's 6'3" and he skates like that. It's ridiculous.
So with just kind of, I'm gonna circle back to that for a second. But so Vlasic, last I heard, day to day, is that still what we're hearing?
Yeah, day to day. DeBoer said today that he's improved, quote unquote, whatever that means. Talked to Vlasic. He was being coy, wasn't really revealing much as he likes to do. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be something that's necessarily going to keep him off the ice this entire road trip. He is going on the road trip. But, these nagging little lower body things that he seems to get, a couple times a year, who knows?
Okay, so I guess, do we have any update on Schlemko?
He skated today at the optional practice day-to-day as well.
Okay, so if Schlemko can't go and Vlasic can't go, who do you call up?
Me, if I'm wearing the general manager's hat, or who do I think the team does?
No, if you're wearing the general manager's cap, who do you call up based on what you've seen from the Barracuda so far?
Personally, I think I'm going to step out on a bit of a ledge and say Joakim Ryan, because I think he might be the guy that I trust the most in the defensive zone, hemmed into the defensive zone in the third period of a game. I just think his details are awesome. He's solid. He makes the smart play. You almost never see him make a mistake.
Right.
And Heed would probably be a close second. But I just don't know. Is he really the right guy for that role? I mean, he's like an offensive engine type guy, but we're talking about third pairing 9 minutes a night, 9 to 12 minutes a night. Is that really the right spot for Heed? But I do like the fact that Heed's played professional hockey, even though it's been in Sweden, which is, sort of on parallel to the AHL.
Mm-hmm.
But, he's a little older, a little more mature. I think my concern with Mirko Mueller would be like, we're seeing all this confidence develop. Now, do we want to set back again?
Right.
Potentially what could happen at the NHL. I would prefer to send Mirko up when we start to see him plateau a little bit. And I don't think he's anywhere near his plateau at this point.
No.
But, I still think he's going to be the guy that's going to go.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that, you know what? I actually,
and I don't think it's a terrible choice either,
but if I had my way, I think I'd put the order like that too, except I might put Heed ahead of Ryan, but Heed, Ryan, Mirko. I think that's the order that I would look at. So just to wrap up on the Barracuda, I guess I just want to ask, like, as far as returning players, because obviously everyone that's basically joined has, come in this year has been pretty rock solid. Who's your most improved players from last year so far?
Defense, Patrick McNally. I mean, he was a guy who couldn't even crack the lineup last year. He was, such a mess in his own zone. It was unbelievable. And I really thought, man, this guy's going to be out of the organization in, he's going to be gone pretty quickly. And the fact that he's really taken a lot of coaching, and there's still some adventures in his game, no doubt about it, but we're talking about most improved. And what's really impressed me about him this season is that, he's played with this sort of rotating door of partners thus far on the defensive pairing with, Dan Kelly and Jacob Middleton and Harrison Rupp and Jason Fram, and he's still managed to kind of hang in there and hold his own. So out of the six, I think he's the sixth, but I think he's made a huge leap from where he was last year, because last year was just a turnover machine.
Agreed.
And there's still times that you see him do something and you're like, you hold your breath, but I still think there's been a lot of growth, from one year to the next. And I guess up front, Nikita Jeplovs. I mean, I think he was a guy that sort of came over here from Latvia, first year North American professional hockey, pretty green and maybe a little overwhelmed with the whole thing. And,
yeah, I mean, put up a lot of points
off-ice distractions, there's on-ice distractions, and he goes, sorry, what did you say?
I said he put up a lot of points in the queue, but it's
okay. Yeah, it is the queue. But that is something. So maybe, I should not be dismissive of that. But having said that, I think that, like, I know talking to Doug Wilson Jr., who's the, director of hockey operations, he said that he and Ryan Carpenter just came into camp in such good shape. They just blew the tests off the charts this year. So to see that Jeplovs put that kind of effort into his offseason training and really wanted to come in, I like to see that. And then I just feel like he just has been really working hard out there. And quite frankly, I mean, when we're talking about most improved forwards, we don't have a lot of options here because
right.
Most of the guys are new. John McCarthy is fantastic, in his role. Ryan Carpenter, was great last year. He's great this year. Barclay Goodrow is sort of the same guy. But that's a guy that stands out to me as like, whoa, we're really seeing something different from him this year.
Nikita Jevpalov definitely is taking a step forward. I felt like the big knack on him was his compete level. Like he would try and make a play, and then when it wouldn't work, he just kind of give himself a pity party and go back to the bench. Whereas I like Thursday's game where the Barracuda got completely destroyed by the Stockton Heat. I thought Yevpalov was one of the only effective forwards on that game. He did that even in the third period. They're still losing 4-0. He was battling as hard as he could on the boards. And sure, he still gets knocked down. He still needs to work on his strength, but he's making himself a nuisance on that forecheck, and that's exactly what he needs to do. And so I think that's a good call, Paul.
Yeah, he was, last year very similar to Goldobin in that regard, where, compete level issues and things like that. And I think that you've just seen him take gigantic strides forward in terms of in that regard this season. So, good on him.
Yeah, and it's good because the other thing with Yevpalov is this is a guy who got bounced to the Allen Americans a couple times last year.
Yeah, and he's
so.
Actually, in talking to Sommer and Ryan Mougenel, assistant coach for the Barracuda, they think that was an experience that really paid off for him because he went down and competed for Allen in that run to the Kelly Cup. What did they call him? Like jalapeno burrito or something. They had a name for him in Texas, but he ended up being a centerpiece and got that taste of being competitive and hockey and all the cliches. But I think that was a really good experience for him, and I think he carried that into his off-season training regimen. Probably part of why you're seeing some of that compete from them this year.
Kevin, anything else you want to cover?
Yeah, we're good. Just the teddy bear toss is next Saturday, so make sure that you head out to the arena. The game time, I believe, is at 7 p.m. on Saturday the 17th.
Get your tickets, bring your teddies, do it. I guess I have to ask the last question of the night, and it's the question that everyone's asking. When is it going to be Timo time in San Jose?
Could be tomorrow. Could be later. I don't know. I don't have an inside scoop on this one. And, I've been thinking about this all day. It's tough to really say what the organization's going to do on this one. I mean, this is if you're throwing me back into the general manager's seat again on this one, I think I'm waiting, quite frankly. I think that what I saw from him on Thursday, was a little bit of a concern. He was obviously coming off a sickness, but he was so close. And to sort of come out the way he did and turn the puck over and all those things. I'm worried that he comes up to the NHL and is trying to carry the thing on his shoulders. And quite frankly, all this Timo time hashtag and the way that CSN's pushing for him.
Yeah.
I would say pump the brakes a little bit. He's still like a young guy with only 17 games of professional experience under his belt. He's not going to come up, as DeBoer said today when I asked him about it at practice, he's not going to come up and be the savior to the team's scoring woes.
Right.
And he can help. He can help, like LeBank's helping. I mean, there's no doubt LeBanc is a finisher, and they need that. And it's been awesome to have that. And Timo could be very much the same way, but that alone isn't going to, it's not like this one missing piece of the puzzle.
I agree. I mean, to me, I would like to see him up because I think he would make the team better, but he's not going to save the team. He's, we get,
not that
a
they
little
even need
silly.
To be saved. I mean, 16, 11-1 or something.
Completely agree. I don't think they need to be saved right now either, but I think, you got to temper your expectations. Look, I'm excited to see this guy play because I love this kid. Love this kid. So I'm just excited to see what he can do in the NHL. And
it's hard to not imagine him on a line with Joe Thornton and Joe Pavelski and go, he can finish.
Or even Couture and Donskoy. That's where I would put him. And I think that would be a stupid good line. But yeah, no, I mean, we have to temper expectation. I think we saw that the last time we really saw this kind of excitement for a prospect. I'd say Logan Couture. I think is the last.
I wouldn't disagree with you there.
Has had this much buzz, and for a while, Sharks fans were really sour on Couture. I remember for a while, I mean, for a while, I think, back. I mean, this is forever ago, so I mean, it's this when everyone was on Fear the Fin and stuff, and I remember there was a good collection of people that were like, "Ah, this guy's a bust. This guy's a bust." I mean, and you get that in any fan base, though. But people need
I also
to
feel
temper their
like Fear the
expectations.
Fin produces that.
Yeah, I mean, this was forever ago, right? I mean, this is when Couture was a rookie, so this is forever ago. But
They bring out the trolls, though. That's all I'm saying.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think we'll do 4 point. I mean, you know, I know on Twitter I try to be a little I like to say smart things, but I also like to be a little silly at times, and I encourage people to be dumb, but it happens. It's what we do. Honestly, Paul, thank you for coming on our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. Drew, I give you the floor because you haven't talked, so break all these people's hearts, Drew.
Well, unfortunately, Ian and I were not able to reach negotiations, and I am walking in free agency to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Jeez.
No, but
this is all because you didn't become the director of the director of content for Pucknology after I accidentally called you that a few weeks ago.
Kevin gave me the promotion, then Ian just took it away from me.
Right.
No, but I will be leaving Pucknology. Unfortunately, I'm going back to school, going to portfolio school to work on my writing for advertising. So I'm committing all of my time to that. I'm not going to be watching much hockey, unfortunately. I'll still be around for a couple more weeks. I'll be on the next Writers Room, I believe, which is January 1st.
Yep.
And then after that, I will be gone, and I will just be an angry commenter.
Drew, I'm going to try and play a sound effect, and I don't know if it's the right one, so if it's the wrong one, don't get mad here. But
all right.
Well, that works. That works, actually. Yeah, that wasn't what I expected, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, Drew's going to be here forever in our hearts, and he'll be on the next.
Because we are all Kevin.
But we are all Kevin Lacy. Obviously, I can't express enough appreciation for what you've done for Pucknology, for helping me out with the writers when my personal school schedule got really hard. So you know, you've stepped up, and so yeah, we do have some stuff lined up. I'm not going to go into it this week. I'll go into it when we return in the 1st. But we've got a few things going in the oven, so stay tuned. But yeah, we're gonna miss Drew. All right, Paul. I mean, everyone should know where to find you, but let the people know where they can find you.
GackleReport.com, at that Gackle Report on Twitter. I'm around.
You're around. Absolutely.
News every now and again. Barracuda broadcasts.
Kevin.
I juggle a lot of balls.
He does. Kevin, go ahead.
Don't turn that into something dirty.
I will.
How do I follow that?
I don't know.
Kevin Lacy 22. We are all Kevin. Drew, you can't leave, man. Can't go.
My name is Drew Weber. You can find me at puck_over_glass. I found the guy who has the name without the underscore. He has like 2 followers, so I'm very upset with that.
Dude, the real at Kevin Lacy hasn't had his account updated in like 4 years, and I keep yelling at Twitter about that.
Screw these guys. Get them out of here.
Get out of here.
I'll be writing for like 3 more weeks. I'll be on the next Pucknology, and then I'll be like, screw you guys. I'm going home. But until then, I will see you next time.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, you can find our show. If you like what you saw today, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, wherever. You can also find me, Ian Reid, at iReadPucknology on Twitter. I might be a little ghosty this week because I have finals, and I know it's an Eastern road trip, which means you usually see a lot of me. I don't know how much you will see. Sorry. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks everyone for being on the show. Have a good night.